Hi. Immigration has been getting a lot of press for years, and with the recent undocumented entry of tens of thousands of Central American kids to the southwest United States, the issue has gotten superheated. My grandfather immigrated from England before 1900, and I have relatives who have immigrated to other countries, so this topic is extremely interesting to me. To formulate an opinion on immigration, legal or otherwise, meant that I needed to understand the issue, to go beyond knee-jerk reactions. I knew I needed to slog through a lot of information. What I came out understanding a bit clearer is that U.S. policy on immigration has changed a lot during the past 230 some years. In fact, immigration to the U.S. was unrestricted until 1875, although a path to citizenship was passed in the 1790 Naturalization Act for free white men of good moral character after 2 years' residency. But even then the explicit intent was to keep certain undesirables from entering the country, such as criminals, prostitutes, and Chinese contract laborers. The first comprehensive National Immigration Act wasn't adopted until 1891. That's just over 100 years ago. Throughout the 1800s and early 1900s, many exclusionary immigration laws were enacted, marked by obvious racist bias towards Asians and Southeastern Europeans. The 1907 Immigration Act went further, excluding individuals afflicted by physical or mental disability that might impede their ability to earn a living, those with tuberculosis, children unaccompanied by their parents, and individuals who admitted to having committed a crime of moral turpitude, whatever that was. Another act passed that year prohibited Japanese laborers from immigrating to the U.S. This was then expanded to barring immigration from Asian Pacific nations altogether. The Quota Law of 1921 first established numerical limits on immigration, except countries in the Western Hemisphere. Now, more to the current Southwest U.S. immigration dilemma. From the 1840s to the 1860s, approximately 6.6 million immigrants arrived in the U.S., most arriving from overseas, rather than from Latin America. This is relevant because the 1862 Homestead Act offered free land in the West to any and all settlers who agreed to live on and develop the land for at least 5 years. The 1845 annexation of Texas caused a war with Mexico that ended in 1848, when Mexico was forced to give roughly 2/5 of its territory to the United States. This included not only Texas, but also present-day California, Nevada and Utah, and parts of Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Wyoming. As a result, Mexican families and communities suddenly found themselves in the U.S. or divided by a newly defined U.S.-Mexico border. This land giveaway also further disenfranchised the Native Americans, whose home the land had been for thousands of years previous. In 1942, the U.S. gave in to pressure from Western growers and enacted the Laborer Program, which provided for large-scale importation of temporary Mexican workers. This at a time when a legal path to citizenship was cumbersome and costly for poor, less educated migrants, which is still largely the case. The United States is, and always has been, a country of immigrants, often so-called undocumented immigrants, by the way. A poem by Emma Lazarus is inscribed at the Statue of Liberty, itself a symbol of welcoming. The often repeated lines are, "Keep ancient lands, your storied pomp," cries she, "with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." So the United States is the golden door. Good or bad, I guess. The Manhattan Institute for Policy Research says immigrants increase economic efficiency by reducing labor shortages in the low and high-skilled markets because their educational backgrounds find holes in the native-born labor market. America's goal should be a policy that enables them to come legally and foster economic growth. Current U.S. immigration law is extremely complex. The system is based on reunification of families, admitting those with skills that are valuable to the economy, protecting refugees, and promoting diversity. So what's the problem? The American Immigration Council insists that the total number of green cards available for all lower skilled workers is limited to 5,000 per year for the entire United States. This grossly insufficient number of green cards in these types of jobs is the crux of the illegal immigration problem in the United States. Another problem is the perceived economic cost to U.S. taxpayers for supporting undocumented immigrants. It gets even murkier here, with costs varying widely depending on which end of the political spectrum the source hails from. The Heritage Foundation, for instance, calculates the annual cost to legal residents at $56 billion. So there appears to be some subsidizing of undocumented low-wage earner benefits paid by documented high-wage earners. This is way deeper than I cared to wade into because there seems to be so many variables. It is very clear to me, however, after talking to people and researching, that the United States is as conflicted as ever about its historical identity as a nation of immigrants. So where have I gone with the design of the issue? After all of this enlightenment, I acknowledge that a contemporary policy reform is needed. It is overdue, and elected officials must be convinced to take action ensuring benefit to individuals and the country. So, I worked on free writing and came up with a variety of positive and negative word associations. I kept coming back, however, again and again to the caution signs I saw in Southern California 20 years ago along the border with Mexico. The crudely drawn image of the father, mother, and daughter running at first appeared comical, but later I associated it with desperation and fear. I received mixed feedback from my classmates, and a couple of them wondered whether the image would be effective taken out of context. To find out before committing to a direction, I polled about 60 people, asking them what they thought the image meant to them. While less than 10% of respondents recognized the images being of U.S.-Mexico border origins, the majority commented generally as a whole that the family was fleeing to a safe place, that there seems to be extreme danger behind them, or that they appear to be running for their lives. I instantly thought that this was ideal. I think that by taking the graphic out of its original context and introducing it into another context, unexpected encounters can happen with the border crossing running family presented as a series of environmental signs constructed and assembled from various materials and techniques, largely without words. Context is a critical component of the experience, integrating unexpected, perhaps surprising locations and materials. My intent is to get people's attention, to keep them thinking about immigration. Encountering a sign on its own terms may make a lasting impression on the unsuspecting. What keeps popping up is the design of Christo and Jean-Claude and the photographer J.R. I appreciate that the implementation of their projects relies on volunteers. Another attribute they each have in common is that their designs are non-negotiable, not co-design. And yet there is always a personal collaboration with the particular environment and the people who live there. Christo and Jean-Claude and J.R. interact with governments completely differently, however. Christo and Jean-Claude often spent years negotiating with and convincing government officials to allow their work to be constructed within the particular districts, while J.R. very often circumvents the bureaucracy altogether. The former asks permission, while the latter just does the art. In both cases, though, the art and design has not been adjusted by committee. I like that. I also considered a website which certain signs will point to. The shape of the positive form of the sign could be scanned by a smartphone, for instance, to link directly to the website, or a QR code may be provided or a URL. I chose to use a URL for my final compositions, fixitnow.us. The initiative and website URL came directly from a Saturday Night Live Weekend Update skit featuring Oscar Rogers, who demanded that those who broke it, fix it now. What needs fixing? U.S. immigration policy, of course. The website is influenced by the Everytown for Gun Safety website and the Not One More initiative. Visitors to the website will find an overview of U.S. immigration policy, immigration reform proposals, a postcard that can be sent to local, state, and national elected representatives demanding that they take action to reform U.S. immigration policy, and links to reliable sources. So here I have my appropriated image icon, the running family, the appropriated call to action, fix it now, and the environmental influences, putting design into the environment for people to encounter. T-shirted people, the running family, and perhaps temporary guerrilla culture jamming. The call to action of sorts appears on the t-shirts and the cutouts as well. This approach depends in large part on word-of-mouth buzz, and I have had fun constructing and displaying the various pieces. I'd like to flesh this project out and construct a lot of pieces to place throughout the community. My hope is that people will be intrigued by them, check them out, and then go to the website for further action, or else otherwise get involved in the immigration reform issue. Thank you.